Hello everyone, welcome everyone to the JG Show. I'm here with Stuart Forbes. We are going to be talking about UFC 250. Let's do it. So everyone, welcome to the JG Show. I'm here with Stuart Forbes. Stuart Forbes is going to be going through UFC 250 with us. UFC have been the first entertainment sports company to be making a presence after COVID-19.
That's right.
And UFC 249 was a phenomenal event. There's been a few fight nights since then, and now we got UFC 250.
Yeah.
So you want to walk us through the entire card. Let's start with the main card with Amanda Nunes, and we'll go bit by bit on each one. What do you have to say?
So I've been reading online on the forums, and there's a lot of complaints that this has been a relatively weak card. I mean, whenever Dana's asked about this sort of thing, he's says to the reporters that, oh, well, you can't judge the cards until after you see the fights.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, that argument makes a lot of sense. However, what do you watch UFC for? You're watching it because it's got the premium fights, right? You watch it because it's got the top fighters, the biggest names, people who've already kind of made a name for themselves, a little bit at least, and build up a good record.
Yep.
So the strength of the card, like it or not, it does matter, of course. And I feel with this one, 250 is like a nice round sounding number, but I don't think it's going to do so many pay-per-view buys. Having said that, the main event, as you said, it's got Amanda Nunes. She's faced off against Felicia Spencer. Now, Nunez is a big name.
Nunez is a phenomenal name, right? Her last fight, wasn't it against Cyborg, and she beat Cyborg, or was it she had a fight since Cyborg?
Yeah. And she's just been kicking ass. She's been dominating totally. And so with Amanda Nunes, that's a name who I'd say I think it's not up for debate. She's pound for pound number one within the women's category. Unfortunately, nowadays, since Rousey left and Cyborg's lost a bit of her spark since she's essentially coming off a loss. However, despite that lack of name value, Nunez is an extremely strong name. She's pound for pound number one, and it's one of those ones where with the guys, you can kind of dispute it. With the guys, there's a lot of debate, especially recently, like, what is it, GSP? Is it Jones, Silva, Emelianenko, or whoever? You could throw some, even Cejudo, who recently retired. Nunez, within women's MMA, is one that there's just no debate. It's Nunez.
That's right.
Given who she's beaten, Rousey, she beat Holmes, she beat Miesha Tate, and then she beat Cyborg. Like, destructively beat Cyborg when I don't think going into that fight, I think she wasn't the favorite. And so basically every big name she's beaten, and beaten dominantly, all finishes, all knockouts. I think the Tate one was a rear naked choke, maybe, after she'd already knocked her down. But either way, they're all finishes. Getting people phoning me now. So that, just having that fight really does boost the card. But again, that one fight, for me, it doesn't make it like such a must-buy card.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people, they're not so as much into women's MMA as they would be men's MMA. I would say that Nunes really, you can't use that same argument with Nunes since she hits like a truck. As I mentioned, she's finished all those super famous fighters, and you can expect to finish with her. And I think in this fight, specifically against Felicia Spencer, I mean, she's no walkover. But my prediction for Nunes, she will be.
She will win.
But
Why is this card not so? I mean, it's just because of COVID-19. They're lacking a lot of fighters. I mean, a lot of fighters probably are out of town. They're not ready to, or maybe they're booking them later for Fight Island.
Well, yeah.
But I mean,
I'd say on the contrary, the coronavirus would make the whole card stronger.
Okay, at least it should, right?
It should make it stronger because, as Dana was saying, as the first post-lockdown things, post-lockdown cards were coming, he was saying, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to have these huge cards because we've got this build-up, this backup of all these fights. And so I was kind of surprised when the 250 card came out. With that said, I mean, I'm not wanting to hate on the other fighters on the card. There's still some big names there. We got former champions in Cody Garbrandt. He's on the card.
Cody's, what do you think of him as a fighter? I've been watching the lead up fights, like the lead up the documentaries they do about each fighter. I really like Cody. He's got a nice story, yeah.
I mean, he's got a good story, and he's also a phenomenal fighter. Amazing, like really. Cody's one of those guys where if he just sticks to the game plan, or not even the game plan so much, just sticks to his fundamentals and not getting too reckless, because he does tend to like to get into a firefight. He does get a bit hot-headed, and the brawls attract him, but the brawls, it's not what suits him, and it's not what suits his chin. He can hit like a truck, but he can't take like a super big shot. He can take some punches for sure, but if someone's coming in with like a power left hook, yeah, he really doesn't want to be there. And he has the ability to not be there. If you see him against people, super fast fighters like Dominic Cruz, Garbrandt versus Cruz was one of the premier performances in recent history of MMA, like within the last 10 years. If you want to see a dominant performance against a world-class fighter, you look at Garbrandt versus Cruz. He essentially dominated the fight over a fighter that is extremely skilled in both wrestling and on the feet, very evasive. And yet Garbrandt in that fight made Cruz look a little bit silly, to be honest, because Garbrandt's so fast and he's got the perfect mix, speed and power. So saying all that, he's up against a real veteran in Assunção. If that's his correct name, but it's Raphael.
But
Assunção.
now this belt, the belt in this division is open, right? The bantamweight division, hasn't the belt's up for grabs, right? So how's that fight coming along? Who's going to be able to get it?
Well, it's not going to be an interim, but it'll be, I'm assuming whoever wins this fight will then be eligible for the interim title. Well, no, it won't even be interim at this point. If Cejudo truly has left, unless they announce something very soon, and they announce like, okay, you know what, we'll bring him back in. It was only, you know, just a ploy for press, which it could be. It could be a negotiating tactic. But let's assume it's not, and he's genuinely retired, and this break is gonna, you know, last. Then, yeah, I assume the winner of this fight will be going into #1 contendership for the open, real
it's open, right?
Yeah.
And who's the guy, the Russian guy? Who's the Russian guy that's in this division?
Oh yeah, Peter Yan.
Yes, this guy.
Yeah.
So he's like the number. He's the one. Whoever. Basically, Dana White said it's going to be him versus someone else, and that's the belt. Whoever's going to take the belt be. So that's. I mean, he's a fantastic fighter. I like that Russian guy.
Yes.
What's his name again? What's that guy?
Peter Yan.
Yan. Yeah. He's good. He's very good. So that's we've got the co-main event. I like the co-main event. Of course, Amanda Nunes. I predict first round. Right? She's devastating, this girl. Right?
Yeah.
But then with the co-main event, I mean, what are your predictions on the co-main event? Do you think?
Co-main, I got Garbrandt still, but again, he's up against someone really tough. This is not someone who's going to be easy, like a pushover. So it'll be a tough fight for him, but again, it's just about him keeping his hands up, not getting into the firefight, staying elusive, jumping in and out, and using that amazing boxing. I feel like if Garbrandt wants to keep it up, he's just going to stay up on the feet. So that's where I think it'll take place.
Nice. Okay. So what about what's the next fight? Another bantamweight fight.
Sterling versus Cory.
I like this guy, this dark guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah. So Aljamain Sterling, I've got him in this fight.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even call him an up-and-comer at this point. I mean, he's been in the division for a while in the UFC, been whooping ass for a long time, got some great wins under his belt. The same could be said of Cory Sandhagen. He's only got one loss, but I'd still take Sterling in this fight for the quality of opponents that he's faced. I just think it's stronger and in his favour. He's put on good performances against a better standard of competition.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. And going down to welterweight, or going down the list to welterweight, that Magny fight. We've got Neil Magny going up against Anthony Rocco Martin.
All right.
Yeah. So
who's this Anthony? I've never heard of this guy. Anthony.
Yeah, he's a relative unknown compared to Magny, and but another solid fighter. Like if we just look at his record, 17-5. With the thing about the UFC, and this will come along when I go on to the next fight, another bantamweight fight. There's a lot of fighters who have built up losses, as you well know. You don't see it in boxing. Fighters who have big names, once they start to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4 losses, it's like, oh, no, this fighter's, kind of washed up already, especially if it's too early in their career, especially if they're not already winding down their careers. You can't take losses. But I think that's just because boxing, you tend to protect your fighter more. There's less ways to lose, but it's mostly about the competing promotions who have a stronger, tighter, the management has a tighter control of who their boxers are going to face.
I see.
So when you see boxers with the losses, of course, it's a bigger deal than an MMA fighter. If he's got some losses, it's no big deal.
It's no big deal. They can still be active, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with boxing, it's true. Every one loss is a big hit in your career.
It's a big hit, and to go undefeated in MMA is so rare. So.
Yes, I see. Yeah. Well, I mean, is there something you'd have to say with the makeup of this card, given the current situation in the U.S.? Like, how did this card get put together? You think? Are these people like? I mean, some of these people are not very well known. So is UFC in a sense like scrounging for fighters?
No, they're not scrounging. They're not scrounging for fighters. I think they're just going to put on the good cards. The latter.
They're saving them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it saving them, but they. It's just how it just came about this way. They probably think, okay, the Nunez fight is. There's enough strength in that fight to bring the whole card up and make it sellable, which could well be true. We'll have to see the pay-per-view numbers at the end and the buy rate. But I just think it happened this way, and I know there's some good cards, there's some good fights that are really going to come in July and so on, and Fight Island, right?
Fight Island's what, July 27? Is that right? I heard it's July 27 is, because we got July 13 is another event.
Yeah.
And then I believe 27 is that's like where it goes to Fight Island.
Okay.
That's I don't know. That's what
he gave like a rough estimate, but he didn't give a date yet. He said he's going to have a date like this week.
Okay.
So
after this 250 card, there should be a lot of announcements as to what's coming next, right? About what's the, about what with Fight Island, with upcoming mounts. Like,
Yep.
I mean, something that's really interesting with Fight Island is all these everyone's putting forth their dream fights for Fight Island. Like, oh, this is the ideal matchup for this and that, right? So probably the one that's done the most is Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. Have you seen that? That a lot of people are trying to get that fight.
I mean, I think it's a decent fight to make, and it kind of makes sense in that even though it is sort of out of the normal run of things in terms of Conor's switching weights back and forth, same thing with Nate Diaz, and now they'd probably do it at 155 because, I don't know, it's the third one. But in a way it makes sense that it's a fight that'll sell and it's fun, but also it doesn't annoy people too much in that it doesn't interrupt the title, the flow of the title and the challenges for the title for either the lightweight and welterweight. They'd at least, either Diaz or McGregor, would have to be getting at least one more win before they're in that contention, if they are to fight each other. Okay. And I think that's right. I think that's the right thing to do, because for lightweight, it's clear what it should be. You know, if we're going in terms of deserve, then it'd be Gaethje and Magomedov.
Yeah.
And same thing with, welterweight's way harder, but it wouldn't be, Conor up next for that.
No.
I mean, and Conor's it seems that Conor doesn't want it, given his lack of response on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
That's exciting, man. Usman versus who? I don't know. But there's,
the new guy, right? Gilbert Burns, is that right? Gilbert Burns, #1 contender right now for the welterweight divisions. He's now directly under Usman, right?
I'm not mad at that. I mean, he is #1. So if they give him the next title shot, given his performance against Woodley, who's looked very rusty in his last 2 outings, then that'd be a good fight. I still feel that Leon Edwards deserves it, and since now people can fly out of the UK, they should just put that fight on.
So ASAP. UK borders are open, huh? So
yeah. Well, it's not like open. There's going to be limited, controlled amounts of people for certain things, and
back and forth, right?
I'm not too sure what the situation is, but there will be some limited flights.